Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. Toronto police are mourning one of their own today after an officer died while on duty. Detective John Park experienced a medical episode while executing a search warrant. The 14-year veteran of the force leaving behind a wife and 2 young children. Greg Ross has more.
Dozens of emergency workers lined the streets in front of Humber River Hospital as the body of Detective John Park was taken away by the coroner.
Losing a friend and colleague in the line of duty always has a profound impact on our service, on our city, on our members and our policing community.
According to police, Park was helping to serve a search warrant as part of a robbery investigation at this building on Steeles Avenue West. They say at some point he had a medical episode and was found unresponsive. Emergency crews attempted to revive him as he was rushed to the hospital.
Despite the best efforts of our first responder partners, John passed away.
Park is survived by his wife and 2 young children, ages 9 and 5.
We've spoken with and met with John's family, and they are understandably devastated by this tragic and sudden loss.
But this is the time we stand together and support the family. We're both so proud of our amazing men and women in uniform that are out there every single day, keeping everybody safe in this city.
Park was a 14-year veteran of the force who started his career at 22 Division and was most recently working as a member of the hold-up squad. Today, the mayor joined the chief of police and other dignitaries to pay their respects to the fallen officer.
We deeply appreciate the work of our officers and the work they do every day for our city. There's no easy way to move from a tragedy.
Today is just a very sad day for Toronto Police Service, for the Toronto Police Association, but really for all of Toronto, especially now at the onset of the holiday season with Christmas coming next week and Hanukkah coming next week.
At this point, it's not clear how Park died. Police say they are waiting for the results of an autopsy before providing any new details. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Police have identified the man shot and killed in Scarborough last night. Police say 34-year-old Adam Christopher Moncrief was walking in the Eglinton Avenue and Markham Road area just after midnight when he was shot by suspects in a vehicle. Paramedics performed life-saving measures when they arrived, and the victim was taken to hospital where he was pronounced dead. The homicide unit is investigating. Durham's police chief is pledging swift action against gun violence after shots were fired at a house for the second night in a row. The latest instance happening in Whitby in the early morning hours, leaving neighbors on edge. Brittany Billette has the details.
Durham Regional Police released this audio of gunfire aimed at a Whitby home. 20 bullet casings from at least 2 guns were found by investigators. One neighbor tells CBC she was woken up by the sound of gunshots and found her home had been hit.
It's disturbing because this is usually a very quiet neighborhood. Now I'm nervous, and now I don't think anything's anywhere safe.
The shooting happened around 1:15 a.m. Nobody was injured, but police say the incident is part of a disturbing string of shootings.
So this is our 6th shooting incident since December 12th. So in approximately a 1-week period, we have had 6 incidents. This is something that is affecting our communities across the region, and is something we are taking incredibly seriously.
Durham police say there have been 45 shooting incidents in the region so far this year. That marks a 50% increase compared to last year. Police aren't confirming whether the Whitby shooting was connected to an incident on Wednesday night. 14 bullets were fired in a housing complex in Oshawa. Some of them ended up in a 12-year-old's room.
There's actually a bullet hole underneath the bed.
Gabby Boileau says she hasn't been able to process everything that's happened. She's just relieved her daughter wasn't home at the time.
Had she been here that night and not at her father's, could have been fatal. I'm just praying that the police are able to do what they do best and find the perpetrator.
Durham's chief of police is vowing to take action, saying on X, "We are committed to dedicating more resources to preventing and investigating gun-related crimes. Each illegal gun we take off the streets prevents untold numbers of shootings and victimization." Some residents say they hope police move quickly to bring in new measures.
Something needs to be done because now I'm even afraid to let my boys out.
Police are encouraging anyone with camera footage or information related to the shootings to contact Durham Regional Police. Brittany Billette, CBC News, Oshawa.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is set to shuffle his cabinet tomorrow. Multiple sources tell CBC News and Radio-Canada that Ottawa MP David McGuinty and Toronto MP Nathaniel Erskine-Smith will join the cabinet. Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc is currently manning 3 cabinet positions, and he's not the only one with multiple portfolios right now. The shuffle will involve at least 10 people, according to sources. Legislation that would make it faster and easier to identify and release innocent people from prison received royal assent this week. An independent body will be established to review wrongful conviction applications. It's a bittersweet moment for the woman who lobbied for this change, the sister of David Milgaard, who spent 23 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Chris Glover reports.
This is a ring that he bought himself, though.
A subtle yet powerful symbol that's pushed Susan Milgaard to keep up the fight to make Canada's justice system more just.
He's with me all the time. I'll be doing something, and then the ring will move and it will give me strength.
In 1969, Susan was 14 when her 16-year-old brother David was convicted of rape and murder in Saskatoon. He spent 23 years in prison until ultimately being exonerated. For decades, his family fought for an independent review board to investigate potential cases of the wrongfully convicted. Their efforts have finally paid off. Changes are being made to the criminal code.
I'm really happy. I'm actually very sad because Mom and David aren't here to see it. So I still have the original.
You got the original.
Yes.
Prior to this, the only avenue was to appeal directly to Canada's Justice Minister, a rare and laborious effort.
It's going to ensure that the experience of the Milgaard family is not repeated.
Justice Minister Arif Virani touting the new law at the Toronto offices of Innocence Canada, a nonprofit currently working on some 130 cases of potential miscarriages of justice.
Do your best to get it right, because if you don't, David and Joyce Milgaard's law is lurking, waiting to correct justice.
The group's co-president, Ron Dalton, spent 8.5 years in prison for murder. He was exonerated after winning on appeal.
What we're now trying to do is make sure we find better ways to catch it and fix it much more quickly, so we can all have some confidence in our justice system.
The new law requires convicts exhaust appeal processes before turning to the independent commission.
It may not have actually affected my particular case, but many of the other cases we would have dealt with much faster.
The Justice Minister says it will take time to hire the commissioners, but he's committed to it.
Every single day is another day that how many wrongfully convicted are still in prison.
Even though you might think her advocacy is over.
Not just David and Mum are keeping an eye on him, I will be too.
Susan says she'll be watching closely to ensure what's now in law actually comes into practice. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto City Council has chosen not to act on a scathing ombudsman report. The report was critical of the city's decision last year to limit shelter access for refugee claimants. The mayor had said council would be discussing its findings, but that didn't happen today. And the mayor, Chow, isn't explaining why. Sarah McMillan reports.
I look forward to a conversation.
That was Mayor Chow earlier this week, talking about the City Ombudsman's report, looking at the city's decision announced in May 2023 to refuse shelter access to refugee claimants. The report found that decision was harmful and amounted to anti-Black racism. For months, asylum seekers, predominantly from African countries, slept on the streets, while the city and federal government were locked in a stalemate over shelter funding. Many Black community leaders stepped up to provide makeshift shelters, including Pastor Eddie Jumba.
When the report from the Ombudsman was produced, part of me was glad that, okay, this is now out in the public. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a unit public trusts. This is a unit that the public respects. This is a unit that the government respects, at least I hoped.
But the city manager said he doesn't agree with the findings of the report, calling it accusatory. After the report was released, the mayor said it would need a thoughtful discussion at council. Instead, there was none.
I just think it was a missed opportunity to not have that debate. A lot of people have questions and concerns, and they are 100% valid over what happened.
Council quietly received the report without debate and didn't direct staff to implement any of the 14 recommendations.
We're treating dogs better than people in this city.
An attempt by Councillor Michael Thompson to reopen discussion was voted down 14-9.
I must tell you, I had a hard time reading this report, and for this council just to allow it to just pass like that, it's shameful.
The mayor didn't vote. Asked today, she says she welcomes the report, but didn't answer whether she agrees with the findings and recommendations.
I think it's important to move forward and look at ways that we can improve our shelter system so that it meets the needs of refugees and not just homeless people.
As part of a separate item yesterday, Council did discuss housing for asylum seekers and refugees. Council approved reimbursing up to nearly $3.5 million to churches and community groups that provided temporary shelter to refugee claimants in 2023, and directed staff to accelerate expansion of specialized shelter and housing options for refugees. Jumba says he's had good conversations with the mayor and the city, but says he's deeply disappointed and frustrated with how the city and council have handled the Ombudsman's report.
And when I see this, it leaves me wondering about what to think of the genuineness of some of these statements they have made for a while now.
Chow says she will hold a meeting with the Ombudsman, city staff, and others to talk about the report. Sarah McMillan, CBC News, Toronto.
A new warming centre at Metro Hall will be opening tomorrow as temperatures dip overnight.
We have space for 30 people and their pets. We're offering meals on site. There's space for washrooms, client referrals, and just supporting people who are in need of shelter space.
The new Metro Hall location is part of the city's expanded winter services program. Toronto's 4 other warming centres opened at 5 o'clock tonight. The city says emergency accommodations are currently being provided to approximately 12,000 people. One of the world's most dominant athletes is back in her hometown tonight, which happens to be Toronto. Canadian swimming superstar Summer McIntosh has returned from Budapest, fresh off 3 world records and a handful of medals, including 3 golds at the World Short Course Swimming Championships. Tonight, she met with young swimmers at the pool where she honed her skills when she was their age. Dale Manukduk was there.
Not every day that you get to touch an Olympic gold medal and meet the Olympian who won them. Even more special when she's a hometown hero. Summer McIntosh was just 10 years old when she first dove in here at the Etobicoke Olympian Pool.
It means the world when the kids come up to me and say that I've inspired them, and I just see the look in their eyes. It's so sweet, and that's really what keeps me going, and it's one of the best feelings in the world and why I enjoy what I do so much. And to be back at the Olympium as well is so nice because this is really where I started off my swimming career.
Here comes Summer McIntosh. McIntosh has had a year for the ages, winning 3 gold medals and a silver at the Paris Games.
This is just ridiculous.
Backing that up with the same tally at last week's Short Course Worlds, and adding 1 bronze. And being named Canadian Athlete of the Year and World Aquatics Female Swimmer of the Year. Big goals achieved for a big dreamer.
I can dream as big as I want to, but yeah, always trying to keep improving, get better is always the main one. But I mean, last year I definitely achieved most of them.
She's also a superhero and a role model for her young fans.
So excited. It's really special because she grew up here, she grew up training with us, and just knowing that she's doing the same training that we're doing now.
McIntosh's history with the Etobicoke Swim Club goes deeper than her time in the lanes. Her mother, Olympian Jill Horsted, also developed here.
eSwim has always been a world-class club. I mean, it's probably one of the best clubs in the world, to be honest. And, you know, it's raised many Olympians, many Olympic medalists. So, I mean, it's essential. I think it's essential for the community, and it's a huge stepping stone.
Horsted says her daughter has always been a big dreamer, scary big. So what's next? Maybe the greatest of all time.
Oh, it means the world. It's definitely very surreal to know that people are talking about me in that way. But yeah, that's always the goal, just to keep getting better and see how far my potential can take me, and my goal is just to maximize it. So yeah, I don't know where I'll end up once I'm done, but I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. Road traffic at King and Spadina remains off limits this hour for a third straight day after a garbage truck took down the streetcar wires early Tuesday morning. Repair work on the wires is still ongoing at the intersection. The city said Tuesday that the intersection would remain closed for the rest of the week, saying extensive work is needed to make repairs. The streetcars on the 504, 508, and 510 lines are all being diverted. Toronto's Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Eileen Davila, is preparing to leave her role after 8 years on the job. In addition to helping the city navigate the COVID-19 pandemic, she's also pushed for supervised consumption sites and the decriminalization of hard drugs. Our David Common caught up with her at a supervised consumption site run by Toronto Public Health that's been ordered to close next spring.
We are here at the Works. It is the supervised consumption site, very near Yonge Dundas Square, Sankofa Square. This is a facility that has operated for several years, but is going to close.
That's right.
How are you feeling?
We're very proud of this facility, and we're proud of what it has been able to achieve and the service that it offers. This is a healthcare facility, a much needed healthcare facility that has responded to overdoses since its inception. Over 4,000 now, so 4,000 lives saved since it opened in 2017, to say nothing of the kinds of connections and referrals that it makes beyond that. So people come in here. It's a safe, stigma-free environment. People who use drugs are able to access necessary health care and connections to things like housing, to primary care, and to other health and social supports. So to my mind, it's a real loss.
The provincial government, the Ford government, has required that any facility close to a school or a daycare facility, which this one is, must close. And so that is why it's being closed. But much of what happens here, and we're standing by the booths where people will come in and use drugs in a supervised fashion. But it happens behind closed doors here. Much of the public doesn't see it. If it's not happening here, where is it going to be happening in a few months' time?
People have a right to privacy when they're engaging and accessing health care. So the challenge is that when we lose a service like this, a supervised healthcare facility, what inevitably happens is that people who use drugs will have to use elsewhere. So it will be unsupervised and likely public use for many of our clients, given that so many of them don't have places of their own to go home to. I can appreciate and understand the concern for children, but again, and their safety, right? I think we all should be concerned around providing a safe community for our young people to grow up in. And the reality is we are in the middle of a drug toxicity epidemic. We need prevention services. We need harm reduction services that actually allows for people to stay alive so that they can then access other services like treatment, like housing, and things like that.
COVID is certainly the big marker of your time in this role. You've had the benefit of a little bit of time after the height of it, the worst of it. I wonder where you reflect now on those times, the worst of it, and what we were communicating to whom and how at that time.
It was a very, very challenging time on so many levels. I think we've learned a number of things, and I think most important amongst them is one, that as powerful as science is, we need to approach all of our endeavors with humility, right? I think the second component that is really standing out in my mind as I reflect back on the COVID period is that the healthier our relationship with the people we serve and the healthier our community is, the more resilient we will be in the face of any challenge, whether it's an infectious disease or, weather-related or a chronic disease issue. These are the issues that I think really need to be the focus of public health, and I would dare say government on the go-forward basis.
Dr. Eileen Davila, good to chat with you, and good luck in whatever the next chapter brings.
Thank you, David.
Colette is here with a look at the forecast. And Colette, we have some active weather on the way, right? A little bit of snow, some pretty bitter cold.
I know. If only we could have pushed the snow, you know, into next week, you know, a little closer for that white Christmas. We'll see what we can do. But we got to talk about what's actually happening here in the short term. We'll start with this snow event. Now, it's not a very strong system. It's a clipper, so it moves through pretty quickly. But we do have that winter weather travel advisory for Toronto, Scarborough, or around for Brampton, Hamilton, Mississauga. It goes right across towards St. Catharines. So look for some roads that are going to be wet, some blowing snow, so reduced visibility. That's, you know, through the overnight tonight and into the day tomorrow, even into the afternoon, still some blowing snow or flurries. And then to the west, snow squall watch, and yes, London in that, but Sarnia also included in that. So it's really crucial with this system coming through is exactly how it's going to track as it goes by. If we really get into that easterly flow and less northeasterly, the more enhancement we get from the lake and the higher the snowfall totals get to. I'll get to that in a moment. Just want to show you that dip, the cold air in place still in the eastern prairies and northwestern Ontario, and that's coming our way for the weekend. So winter arrives and it brings that Arctic air. Just looking at how this develops through the night, we get that flow off the lake with the open waters. It enhances the snowfall totals, and then it kind of turns and goes more towards Hamilton, around towards Grimsby as the day wears on. And then this will be sunshine for Saturday, other than you have the highly localized areas where you'll still have some lake effects. So 5 to 10 centimeters perhaps. The west end of Lake Ontario around Hamilton, more localized. Otherwise, it's going to be more of a 3 to probably 5 centimeter event. Cold air, though, just beginning to come in. But that's why this time it is snow. Tomorrow, we just stay around that -4, -3 degrees. Saturday, winter begins in earnest. But, you know, just think, after that, the days start getting longer again and we get more daylight.
Well, I like that. I like that attitude, right?
Yeah.
Like more daylight, I'm always down for that.
And a little mix. I just want to say on Tuesday, we'll see what happens with that as we're getting closer to Christmas.
Yeah. And before we go, okay, we got to bring in our floor director, Phil, because look at this. He is bringing the holidays here. Yeah. And this is your last show before the new year,
yeah,
right?
So happy holidays to everyone and to you as well. What is it that you use that
We
bullseye
forgot
for?
the arrows.
Yeah,
you got to bring them next time.
Definitely. We're going to find those after the show.
Yeah, that's right. That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, everyone.